What's good? It's Russell Kinder, and today I'm going to be discussing a recent episode of AEW Dynamite. Jumping straight into it. Starts off with, of course, MJF's return. I am so glad MJF is back because we need we need MJF right now. Even though the shows have been solid recently, but this tonight's show was really good. But we've been really, you can feel like his presence being missed in AEW. But I'm so glad MJF back. I'm so glad he's back. I can't wait what they have for him. But it starts with an MJF promo. He starts off guns blazing, not wasting any time. He starts sending disses to everyone. He started dissing Okada. He dissed Swerve Strickland, world champion. He ended up dissing Will Ospreay as well, mentioning how Will Ospreay can't be the best if he hasn't beaten all the people that he has beaten. Then he talked about how he's the face of the company, how he became the most hated to the most beloved. Then Roosh came out. He said something, but I'm going to be honest, I could not understand what he was saying for the most part, because half of it he was speaking in, I'm assuming, Spanish for the most part. Couldn't really understand what he was saying either. I couldn't understand what his point was, so I don't know what he said. You guys let me know. But then MJF ends up responding back. He ends up doing his signature catchphrase. Then Roosh ends up getting in the ring, and they start brawling. They're going back and forth. Security trying to break them up, but they can't. Then they both get separated in the corner, but then they end up breaking away from security, end up hitting each other in the corner, they end up breaking away from security, brawl again, but security ends up, being able to manage it and ends up separating them, and that's the end of the segment there. So it looks like Roosh is going to be the first. They've been teasing it as well, because Roosh, I think after Double or Nothing, Roosh ended up cutting like a backstage segment or something talking about MJF. So they've been teasing Roosh was eventually going to come out to MJF. So this looks like this might be the first opponent MJF faces. I'm interested to see where this goes, though. Next, we get Orange Cassidy versus Kyle O'Reilly. This was a very solid match. No, not Kyle. I'm tripping. It's Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, Ray Phoenix, and trying to think, in Jay Lethal. I don't know why I forgot this is a 4-way eliminator match for basically a number one contenders match for the international championship. The winner gets to face it against Will Ospreay next week on Dynamite. I don't know why I thought it was just Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly. I almost forgot it was a 4-way. This was a really solid match, really good pick, really good match. But Ray Phoenix ends up picking up the victory. Jay Lethal, if I'm not mistaken, had him in a figure 4 lock, about to, but then Ray Phoenix was able to reverse into a roll-up pin, picks up the victory. It makes sense. Orange Cassidy is not in the international picture anymore for the most part. He's feuding with Trent Beretta, and then Kyle O'Reilly just had his match against Will Ospreay on Collision. He was not going to have him have another match, so it makes sense for Ray Phoenix to pick up the victory here, and I don't think Jay Lethal should be anywhere near that title, so it only makes sense for Ray Phoenix to win. But after the match, though, Trent Beretta, Don Callis come out. Don Callis ends up throwing a steel chair into the ring. Orange Cassidy sees that and ends up getting a change from underneath the ring. Then Chris Statlander comes out because Orange Cassidy gets in the ring about to attack, but Chris Statlander comes out and stops Orange Cassidy from attacking. She's trying to convince him, playing her role and pretending that she's this good person that's in the best interest for Orange Cassidy. Then she ends up sneak attacking him and ends up punching him in the face. Then stares him down. Then Willow Nightingale theme music hits. Then she runs into the ring, tries to attack Chris Statlander, but Chris Statlander, being the heel that she is, runs away with Stokely all the way to the backstage. Love what they did here. This was really good. I love what they did here. I'm interested to see how this plays out with Chris Statlander, aligning herself more with Trent Beretta. Interested in to see how a heel Chris Statlander plays, because as a babyface, I didn't hate Chris Statlander. I thought she was fine, but I didn't think she wasn't anything that I was going crazy over. I think this has a lot of potential. I'm very interested to see how this plays out. But then afterwards, there was an interview segment with Willow afterwards. She mentions, her match at Double or Nothing. She admits that she lost, but she also admits that if it wasn't for her friend Chris Statlander costing her the match, she would have won because she had her pin, but the ref was distracted. And she said that she will be going after that TBS championship one day, which we all know they will have a rematch. But then she ends up saying that basically she's going to be coming after Chris Statlander. Then Will Ospreay ends up coming into the interview and ends up dapping Willow Nightingale up. So it looks like that they could potentially, teaming up together. We could see, a tag team, where it's Willow, Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta and Chris Statlander. We could see that. eventually. Who knows? But I'm very interested to see how this storyline goes, though. Next, we get a qualifying match for the TNT Championship match. This is the second one because I remember on Rampage they had a qualifying match for the TNT Championship between Konosuke Takeshita and Penta. This match is between Mark Briscoe and Brian Cage. This was a decent match as well. Mark Briscoe ends up picking up the victory. He ends up hitting a froggy bomb for the victory, and he will be in the qualifying for the TNT Championship, TNT ladder match for Forbidden Door. So right now it's Konosuke Takeshita and Mark Briscoe, the two opponents right now for Forbidden Door for the TNT Championship in the ladder match. Now we get a quick interview segment with Samoa Joe and Hook. Samoa Joe and Hook, they get an interview. Then three guys approach. I don't know what this faction is. You guys let me know. I never seen them in my time watching it. I have never seen this group. They come in. Basically, they end up making fun of Hook. They end up making fun of Hook, getting underneath Hook's skin. Hook tries to fight him, but Samoa Joe constantly, ends up holding Hook back. And he ends up saying that we're not going to fight on their time. We're going to do it on our time. So they're still playing, building up the anticipation of when Hook and Samoa Joe will make their move. I'm interested to see how this plays out. I still don't think this makes sense, but this does have a lot of potential, and I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I think Hook and Samoa Joe I think they could work very well together. I think it could be an interesting duo if it's booked right. So I am very interested to see how this plays out, though. Next, we get the Acclaim. The Acclaim comes out. Their theme music hit, they got the rap. In the middle of the rap, Max Caster was about to diss EVPs, basically the Young Bucks. But then the music gets cut off, and then the Young Bucks basically ends up saying that, in your contract, you can't diss the EVPs. That's disrespectful, and your segment is cut. It's cut. We don't have no time for you, so your segment is over. You might as well, I love what they did here. They end up cutting the Acclaim segment, and then later on they had another segment where the Acclaim end up approaching them, end up saying that we will meet again and we will end up fighting each other eventually. So it looks like they're setting up the Acclaim eventually going after the Young Bucks. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I love what they did here. The Young Bucks, being solid heels. I'm liking their new gimmick. I like this gimmick personally. It's a little annoying at times, but I like their gimmick though. I really love what they're doing here, and I enjoy what they did here. I thought this was really good. Next, though, we get the Blackpool Combat Club versus CMLL. Now, at first, when I first saw this, I thought, why is this happening? Now, I still feel like this is a bit random. Now, I know they feuded before, but to be fair, they haven't feuded in some time now. So I don't know why they're feuding now, but they have feuded before. So I understand there is some backstory, but still though, they haven't feuded in some time now. But this was a good match though. You had all the members of Blackpool Combat Code. Yuta returned from injury. This was a solid match, really good match. Blackpool Combat Club, of course, was going to pick up the victory here. This might be the end of the feud. I personally don't know. Interested to see what's next for them though, because we know Bryan Danielson we know what eventually Bryan Danielson is going to do, but I'm curious to see what's next for Claudio and Yuta personally. But they might just continue to do what they've been doing. Now next we get I was going to mention the Mariah May match, but Christian Cage approaches the EVPs, the Young Bucks. He ends up basically saying that he got screwed out of the AEW World Championship and he needs another title shot. The Young Bucks basically ended up saying that if it was up to them, they would. But with Christopher Daniels around, they can't just give him a shot. And that they would try to pull some strings, if they can, to give him another title shot. So it looks like Christian Cage still wants Swerve. So it looks like this won't be the end of Swerve and Christian. So we'll see how that plays out. So they might have Actually, no, they're probably not going to have another match based off how they're booking it. They might not have another match, but they could. It could be another match on Dynamite. It's not going to be a pay-per-view match. If they do have another match, it's going to be on Dynamite. I don't see them doing another pay-per-view match, especially with All In coming up and stuff. Yeah, it's probably going to be a Dynamite match for sure, most likely, though. Next, Mariah May versus Saraya. Saraya has, Harley Cameron on her side. Toni Storm was on commentary. This was a decent match. Saraya was dominating for majority of the match. It actually shocked me to end it because I thought Mariah May would pick up the victory here, but towards the end though, Saraya got her in the submission, and basically it was no way for Mariah to escape because she had her legs locked in, but she also had her arms locked in too, so she couldn't really go after the ropes or anything. She couldn't crawl because she was like in the air. So it was nothing that Mariah May could do. So she ends up tapping out. Toni Storm ends up coming into the ring, seeing if Mariah May is okay. Saraya ends up attacking Toni Storm, of course, attacks her. Then Mina comes out for the save. Then after she makes the save, she ends up, of course, caressing Mariah May. But then Toni Storm ends up, being a little jealous and ends up doing the same thing. They're both fighting for the attention of Mariah May. They're both like putting they both end up like basically pulling Mariah May towards their breast, basically constantly pulling Mariah May towards the be close. They're trying to basically be close to Mariah May, constantly fighting for Mariah May. Interested to see how this goes. I know Mina will be the one to face Toni Storm at not double or nothing, Forbidden Door. Interested to see how this plays out. I never seen her wrestle. I'm assuming she's a great wrestler because I know she's from New Japan. It should be a good match. I'm excited to see how it plays out, though. Now, next, we get Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho was doing a lot. Well, I wouldn't say a lot. He was basically ignoring people and basically annoying people the whole show, constantly, being, just an annoying guy, constantly giving his advice to people that people didn't want to hear, that people didn't want, but constantly going around backstage giving people advice that they don't really need the whole show. I didn't mention it because I felt like it was very annoying. Now, to be fair, as a heel, you're supposed to be annoying, but this isn't the type of annoying that... This is more like get off my TV annoying, not like you're annoying because you're such a good heel. It's more like, please just give up. Man, this gimmick, man. This gimmick is not even, like I said, the idea of the gimmick isn't bad. It's just the execution that I feel like Chris Jericho is kind of overdoing it. It just feels super unnatural. It feels like he's forcing this gimmick way too much. But he runs into Private Party. Basically, they have an interaction. Basically, he ends up saying that they need more TV time. So he's going to invite them on TV time with the Learning Tree Chris Jericho. So next week, Private Party and Chris Jericho and Brian Keith and Big Bill will be in a segment together next week with, talking about with TV time with the Learning Tree. So we'll see how that plays out. Now we get to Bryan Danielson. He cuts a passionate backstage segment. He talked about how he constantly loses big matches, constantly brings up big match after big match. He always loses. Talked about every championship opportunity he ends up losing. He ends up mentioning how this is his last year as a full-time performer. He ended up mentioning Yuta, recovering and how, how happy he is for Yuta to recover. Then he ends up mentioning that the Owen Hart tournament and how that might be his last shot That's his last shot to prove himself, and he will be in that tournament. So we'll see how that plays out. Depending on how Forbidden Door ends up happening, that would decide whether or not I believe he can win it, because I wouldn't be shocked if he won it. But it really depends on if Will Ospreay wins at Forbidden Door. Because if Will Ospreay loses at Forbidden Door, then I don't see Bryan Danielson winning. But if Will Ospreay wins, then I can see him winning. Possibly, but that also it depends on if MJF's in it and all that. So it really depends on who's in it, but it wouldn't shock me if Bryan Danielson won, though. Now we get to the main event, Swerve versus Roderick Strong. I'm not going to speak too much on this match. This was a good match, but we already know what was going to happen. You had Undisputed Era ends up interfering. Undisputed Kingdom, I'm calling about their old stuff. Undisputed Kingdom ended up, interfering in the match like they always do, but Swerve ended up overcoming the odds, ends up picking up the victory. He ended up winning off of a house call. This was a really good match, but we already knew Swerve was going to win. This was a really good Dynamite. This was a really good episode. I like tonight's episode of Dynamite. I feel like they progressed some stories. I feel like every match that happened had some type of meaning behind it for the most part. I like this episode of Dynamite, but let me know what you guys thought of tonight's episode of Dynamite. I really don't have too much to say. I'm just glad that MJF's back. I love what they did here, but yeah, I don't have too much to say, but yeah, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave your opinions down below. But yeah, that's it.